We want to welcome you to the Dallas Independent School District STEM Environmental Education Center virtual field trip. We'll say a very special welcome to the following schools: George Truett, Martha Riley, Harlee, Lego, Zaragoza, Seagoville North, Castle View, Indian Creek from Southwest ISD, Martin Weiss, O.M. Roberts, George Peabody, J.W. Carpenter, Mark Twain, Charles Rice, Lakewood, Chapel Hill, and Eladio Martinez. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful day. Bring your coats so starting Wednesday, because you know it's supposed to really get cold and nasty. We'll hope it doesn't get quite that bad for you. Okay, teachers, if you're watching, you have not signed up, I wish you'd do that, please. Go to www.tiny.cc/PK-2 registration. Sign up for us so we'll have you on our mailing list. The program today is Patterns in the Natural World. During this virtual field trip, students will observe changes in the appearance of objects in the sky, such as the moon and stars, including the sun. Students will also identify characteristics of the seasons of the year and day and night. Mr. Ramirez will tell you all about day/night. Mr. Monroe will cover seasons. The moon will be described by Ms. Ram, and Mr. Dominguez will tell you all he knows about sun and stars. Teachers, students, you cannot you cannot ask us a question during this program, but you can write us a question. www.tiny.cc/question-answer. Send in your questions, and we'll be glad to answer them for you. And now, Mr. Ramirez is going to talk about day and night.
Hello, my name is Ms. Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to be learning about daytime and nighttime. And I do have an animal friend with us, and he's an example of an animal that is diurnal. That means that this animal is active during the daytime. I'm going to give you some clues to who this animal is, and then I'll let you guys guess. This animal has 4 legs, a long tail. It starts with the letter L, and he has dry, scaly skin. Again, this animal is diurnal, or active during the day. You might have met him before, so go ahead and make your guess. I'm going to pull him out. This is Spike. He is a lizard. He is diurnal. That means that he is awake and active during the daytime. He's called a bearded dragon lizard because he has a beard of skin under his chin, and he also has spikes on his body. So I'm going to go ahead and put our friend Spike up, and we'll take a look at a little presentation to learn about day and night. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. I have a couple of focus questions for y'all, so hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to answer these 2 questions. The first is, what are characteristics of day and night? And also, what causes day and night? So we'll be learning about those throughout the presentation. So the first thing I have for you guys are 2 pictures. I want you to think about, what do you see? Do you think it is daytime or nighttime? How do you know? So teachers, feel free to take a moment to pause the video and let students discuss what they're observing. I'm going to go ahead and go right into it for the sake of time. I happen to notice that I see a bright, shining sun. So I have a sun right over here in the corner. This happened to be, it was sort of a sunny day, but it was also weird because there was a lot of clouds. So look at all the clouds that were in the sky that day. So we have the sun, which is important for light to help us see, but also for warmth to keep us nice and warm. I also have some white clouds in the sky. Now take a look at this picture. What do you guys notice? I noticed that there are no clouds this day. It's a nice, clear, bright blue sky. And I also see something else very important. I see the moon. So hopefully you guys can find it. It's right over here. Some days we can actually see the moon during the daytime. Now it's easier to see the moon at night because the sun is not shining so brightly. During the daytime, the sun is so bright, it makes it really hard to see the other stars and the moon. So the best time to see the moon is at night. So if we take a look at these two pictures, we know that it is indeed daytime. So again, our daytime animals, like the lizard that you guys saw earlier, those are all diurnal. And a little fact about the moon does not make its own light. Instead, it's reflecting light from the sun. And remember, the sun is just a star. Stars can make their own light, but the moon is not a star. It cannot make its own light. So take a look at these pictures. What do you see? And do you think it's day or night? How do you know? Again, feel free to pause, but I'm going to go right into it. I notice that I see a lot of stars. In fact, some of these stars can make patterns that we call constellations. So I see a pattern here. This is called the Big Dipper. Kind of looks like a spoon that you would dip things into. I also notice that we have the big bright moon, which you'll learn about later. Again, the moon is easier to see during the nighttime. And we have lots of stars. Notice the color of our sky is different. It's a lot darker. So that lets us know that these pictures are of nighttime. And again, our nighttime animals are actually called nocturnal. They are night animals. Now we're going to play a quick little game. We're going to see if you guys can figure out if these animals are daytime animals or nighttime animals. The science word for daytime animals is diurnal. Diurnal and daytime both start with the same letter D. Nocturnal is the science word for nighttime animals, and they both start with the same letter N. So diurnal is day, nocturnal is night. So look at our animal friend, the owl. Do you think owls are diurnal or nocturnal? So when are we going to see and hear those owls? Hopefully you guys said they are nocturnal. Usually at nighttime, you might be able to hear the owls hooting, or you might be seeing some owls maybe hiding in the trees. So owls are nocturnal. They are nighttime animals. Now take a look at our next animal. These are some cute little raccoons. Do you think raccoons are diurnal or nocturnal? So when are we going to see those cute little guys? And I know when I used to live in Dallas, even in the city, you might find raccoons in your backyard or maybe rummaging around your trash can looking for food. Mostly you will see these guys during the nighttime. So raccoons are nocturnal. They are most active at night. And my next animal, the last one, is our squirrel friends. So do you think squirrels are diurnal or nocturnal? So when are we going to mostly see those squirrels running around? Hopefully you guys said they are diurnal. So we mostly see squirrels during the daytime when we're out and about as well. So squirrels are definitely an example of a diurnal animal. And humans, for the most part, are diurnal. We are awake during the day, and at night, we are asleep. So remember, diurnal is daytime, nocturnal is nighttime. Now, I have a quick little video to help model why we even have day and night. So I'm going to play the little video for you guys. In this model, we're going to learn what causes the day and night cycle. I happen to live in Dallas, Texas, and I have Dallas, Texas marked on our globe with this orange dot. So notice the position of planet Earth, notice where I am currently located, and notice where the sun is. So if I live in Dallas, Texas, which is right here, do you guys think it is day or night, and why? Feel free to pause the video, teachers, to allow time for students to discuss, but I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. Hopefully you guys said it is daytime on this side of the earth because this side of the earth is facing the sun. So the side that is facing the sun will be experiencing their daytime. Now look at this side of planet Earth. The people on this side of the planet are experiencing their nighttime. So we have daytime on this side of the planet, nighttime on this side of the planet. Now our Earth does something very special. It rotates means to spin. So our planet is going to rotate. So here I'm going to rotate planet Earth. Notice it's moving around. It's rotating, rotating, rotating. It's going to keep rotating and rotating and rotating. And now notice where I am located in Dallas, Texas, the dot is now on this side. So do you think Dallas, Texas, for this model is experiencing day or night? And hopefully you guys said nighttime is represented for this model for Dallas, Texas. It's facing away from the sun. So when the side of the planet is facing away from the sun, that is nighttime. So the planet is going to continue rotating or spinning. It's going to spin, spin, spin. It's going to keep on rotating, and we're going to stop there. Now notice Dallas, Texas is right here. It's facing the sun again. And so now we have daytime. It takes 24 hours or 1 day for the Earth to spin all the way around one time. So again, rotation just means spinning, and it's that rotation that causes day and night. This is a little song to help you remember rotation. Feel free to stand and follow along with me if your teacher allows. Otherwise, just stay in your seat and listen. If you're going to follow along, make sure you stand, push your chair in, and then we will get started. We are going to spin around, and you guys are going to repeat after me. Rotation, rotation. Let's talk about rotation. Let's do it one more time. Rotation, rotation. Let's talk about rotation. Here's our next line. Causes day and night, and the sun going across the sky. Repeat one more time. Causes day and night, and the sun going across the sky. Here it is all together again. We're going to start with rotation. Rotation, rotation. Let's talk about rotation. Causes day and night, and the sun going across the sky. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop that screen share, and that is all I have for you guys today on daytime and nighttime. We're going to give it back to Dr. Gorman to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. And we did have a question. Student wants to know 2 of the common night animals that we have at the Environmental Center. The barn owl. We are out in the country, so we do have a lot of barn owls, and also the bat. I don't see a lot of bats around this area, but if you go down to Central Texas or out in New Mexico and all, there's thousands and thousands of bats, and they are both nighttime animals. I believe Ms. Ramirez said since it started with an N, that means it must be nocturnal. And now Mr. Monroe is going to tell us all about seasons.
Okay, students, let's learn about seasons. Well, you know, when we talk about seasons, we're talking about very special times during the year when we can see changes coming about. Those changes might be a change in how hot or cold it is, temperature-wise, what kind of weather patterns have changed, such as maybe we're starting to get a lot of rain, a lot of precipitation, or even to the fact that, man, seems like there's been a long day, meaning on that particular day or several days, we may have more sunlight longer than any other days. So seasons indicate some changes. And we know that there are 12 months in a year, right? Well, to better help you understand what seasons are and why they happen, let's get involved in a little PowerPoint presentation that I have. And at the end of that presentation, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you probably the reason why, in fact, I know not probably, it's the reason why we do have seasons, okay? So bear with me while I share my screen with you. And we'll get started. 4 seasons, the 4 seasons. Well, actually, there's 4 seasons. So if you realize, or if you think about it, 4 seasons, and how many months are there in a year? There's 12 months, right? We'll figure it out about how long each season lasts. Let's get started. You know, what is a season? Well, a season is one of 4 periods in a year. Each season lasts about 3 months, so that's about right. In each season, there are changes in temperature, weather, and the length of daylight that we have during a day. Now, Ms. Ramirez went over with you about why we have daylight and nighttime, right? And so basically, that can kind of change as the seasons. The number of hours that we have daylight does change with the changing of seasons. Why do we have seasons? Well, simply because of the relationship that goes on between the earth and the sun. And that relationship is this. Now, Ms. Ramirez talked about a big word for you guys, rotation. And that's the spinning of our planet, spinning around and around. Now, as far as seasons is concerned, there's another action word, and that is revolving. You see, the planet Earth revolves around the sun. And I'm going to show you an example of that toward the end of this presentation. And as it revolves or orbits around the sun, that's the reason that we have seasons. The seasons change as the Earth moves closer and further away from the sun's light and heat energy. Why? Well, some places are close to the center of the Earth, near the equator. Now, when we talk about the equator, we're talking about an imaginary line that separates the top half of our planet from the bottom half of our planet. Now, it doesn't really separate it, but it's a line that if we wanted to cut our planet in half, that's the line we would go by. And areas around the equator usually, oh man, they get most of the sun's light and heat energy. These places do not move closer or further away from the sun. Because of this, these places stay very warm all year round. Now, what are the 4 seasons? Well, you guys probably already know this, but let's go over it anyhow. Autumn, winter, spring, and summer. Do they ever change in their order? No, they do not change in their order. And one of the things that I'm hoping that you guys will remember from this presentation is the order that they do occur in. You know, your teacher may ask you later on if you can name the seasons in order. Hopefully you'll be able to answer that question by the time I finish my presentation. And she might even ask you, just to surprise you, well, what season comes after summer? Hopefully you'll be able to tell her that too. All right. Now, when we talk about autumn, that is a season that also has another name. Autumn is also called fall because the leaves fall from the trees during that season. In autumn, the leaves turn colors of red, yellow, orange, and brown. The weather begins to turn colder in autumn. Yep. And I think a lot of times we look forward to that season. In fact, that's one of my favorite seasons. Simply because we'll be coming out of the season of summer when it's very hot and we're looking for some cool weather. Now, when we get into the season of winter, wow, winter is the coldest time of the year. Snow falls in the winter. Ponds and lakes freeze in the winter. And there's a very special holiday that happens during the season of winter, and that is the holiday of Christmas. Everyone looks forward to that. Now, you know, meteorologists, these are scientists that study weather, have predicted and forecasted that this week, later on this week, we are going to get some real winter weather. The air temperature, the temperature is going to go below freezing. So we might even see our pond get a little ice on it. It might start trying to freeze. And there's even a chance that we might see some snow. Now, from winter, we move into the next season, which is spring. Now, hopefully, like myself, some of you are going to be looking forward to spring because winter is really cold, right? Spring is a time when it starts getting warm, and we'll be looking forward to some warm weather. You know, spring, it's not too cold and not too warm and not too hot. So it's just about ideal. That's my other favorite season. In the spring, we get lots of rain. And you know what, guys? We need some rain real bad. These things, these plants and trees around the center, we need some water on these plants and trees to help them grow. So we need some rain, and we haven't had any rain in a long time. You know, flowers begin to grow in the spring. The leaves begin to grow on trees, and everything is appearing to grow, to wake up and grow. So that's why sometimes I like to call the season of spring the growing season. The weather starts to get warmer. Remember what I said? Not too hot and not too cold. It's almost just right most of the days in that season. And then along comes summer. Wow. We live in North Texas. So summers here are a little bit different from a lot of summer places that have summer, the season of summer. In fact, you know, they say summer is the warmest time of the year, but here where we live in North Texas, you know what I'd like to say? I'd like to say it's the hottest time of the year because it gets pretty hot here. The water gets warm and we can go swimming. And that's when, during the summer, a lot of people start swimming in the swimming pools, and a lot of people go to the lakes. They swim in the lakes and they have lake recreation activities going on. It's just a good time to have a lot of fun. And then there's no school in the summer unless you have to go to summer school. And hopefully you won't, okay? So there are some things that I want you to think about because your teacher might even have you do some of these things, okay? One of the things is this. You know, what are some clothes that we wear during each season? I want you to be thinking about that. And then be able, if your teacher asks you why, be able to tell your teacher why. Your teacher might even have you draw a picture of the things that occur in each season. And your teacher might ask you, well, in which season is Halloween? In which season is Easter? In which season does Thanksgiving occur? And there's one there, I keep saying I'm going to look this up because I can't remember when Remembrance Day happens, but I need to look that up and figure out what day Remembrance Day happens and what month it happens so I can figure out what season Remembrance Day occurs in. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want you guys to look at this model. This represents the sun. This goldish ball here. And you know, when we talk about rotating, Ms. Ramirez talked about our planet spinning, right? Well, revolving or revolution means our planet is orbiting around the sun. And it takes 1 year for our planet to go all the way around the sun. Okay, that's a revolution. It's revolving around the sun. It's orbiting around the sun. And you see, our planet does not sit up straight. It's at an angle. I'll just show you briefly. And as it's moving around the sun, you see that it's at an angle. So areas like the United States here, as it's moving around, it's leaning toward the sun in some places, but other places it's leaning away from the sun. In those places where it's leaning away from the sun, guess what? That means we're probably in autumn and fall or winter because we're not getting a lot of the sun's light and heat energy, okay? And on the times that during the year that we're leaning close, like here, I wish you could see that. That means it's probably spring or summer because the sun's light and heat energy is really coming to us, okay? And why people don't have seasons in the middle, I'm going to bring this back, is because that equator is located here. And so it's receiving light and heat energy the same all year round. So they don't really have seasons. So hopefully that helps you understand. Now, I got a couple of animals I want to share with you because seasons do have an effect on our animals that are in nature. I've got a little animal right here. And this is a three-toed box turtle. Her name is Teresa. Now, she came from our woods, the Post Oak Preserve. And there are more of these turtles that are living in our Post Oak Preserve. But because we're in the season of winter and it's going to be cold, it's not cold every day, but most of the time it's cooler temperatures. Because this animal is a reptile and is cold-blooded, they're not able to deal with cold temperatures very well. So what they do, they go into a deep sleep called hibernating or hibernation. And if we were going out on the trail today looking for an animal like Teresa, we probably would not find one because they would be in the ground in a deep sleep that we call hibernation. So that's Teresa, the box turtle, the three-toed box turtle. She's a pretty good girl. She came out to look at you guys. Let me put her up. Got another animal I'd like to show you. This is Hoppy Jr. Hoppy Jr. is an American bullfrog, and he is a member of the amphibian family. Now, the amphibians are also ectothermic or cold-blooded, and so they don't deal with cold temperatures very well. Now, if it was spring, Hoppy would be on the edge of the pond down here, hopping around looking for some bugs to eat. But because we're in the season of winter, guess what he's doing? Because he can't deal with cold temperatures very well, he's in the ground sleeping somewhere in that deep sleep that we call hibernation. So seasons do have an effect on a lot of the animals that live in nature. That's Hoppy Jr. Now, guys, listen, one more thing I want to share with you. I had a granddaughter of mine draw some pictures of, she thinks she's an artist, but I had her draw some pictures of some trees that she told her, I said, draw some pictures of some trees, draw them the way that you think that they would look during each season. Well, she started out, she drew this one of the summer, and basically full of green leaves, right? Then she drew the next one. This is fall or autumn, right? Well, the leaves are orange and reddish color, but we can see some of the leaves are falling, right? And they're laying on the ground. And then she drew another tree. This represents winter. Boy, there's no leaves on the tree at all. It looks dead, doesn't it? But it's not dead. It's not really a dead tree. It's gone into dormancy, which is another word similar to hibernating, like Teresa and like Hoppy Jr. And we can see the leaves laying on the ground. And then we get into spring, and it's almost like I said, everything starts waking up. So we got a few green leaves, and we got some pink and white blossom. So it's in the growing season. And then the thing about it, remember what I said, it never changes its order. It just repeats itself from spring, we go to summer, and we go back through again. Well, I've run out of time, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gorman. So if any of you have any questions, I bet he can answer them for you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. And the question is, where did the name for winter come from? Well, winter is an old German word that means the wet time or the wet season. And in Germany, during the winter time, it rains or snows a lot. So that's where it got the name winter. It's a German word. And now Miss Schramm is going to tell you all about the beautiful moon.
Hey everybody, it's me, Miss Schramm. Good afternoon. And like Dr. Gorman said, I'm going to teach you all about the moon. So before we get going with the presentation, I wanted to share with you my model of the sun, the earth, and the moon. So their relation to each other or their location in space has everything to do with what we are able to see in the night sky. So the parts of the moon that we are able to see at different times of the month or different times of the year all depends on where these three objects are located in space. So of course, in the center of our solar system, we have our sun. Then we have our earth that we live on, which is orbiting around the sun. And tagging along with us is the moon. So our moon is orbiting around us. It's the only naturally occurring satellite, which means it's the only object found in nature that orbits around the earth. So we've got a lot of moving parts. So that means what we can see in the sky changes from day to day. So let me get this little presentation going. Here we go. All right, we're ready, spaghettis. So at the end of my section of the field trip, you'll be able to observe and record changes in the appearance of objects in the sky, such as the moon. So we are going to be little astronauts today, and we're going to be answering a lot of questions that you may have about the moon, and maybe some ones that you didn't think of either. So let's see. Let's observe our moon. So some of the questions we're going to ask and answer are, how big is it? What's it made of? What would it feel like if you could touch it? What color is the moon? How far away is it? Why does it look different on some days or different times of the year? And how come we can see it in daytime? So let's get started with the first question. How big is our moon? So the moon is about 1/4 the size of Earth. So we have our Earth here and our moon right next to it. And if you want to use the comparison of objects that we have or encounter in everyday life, if you had a basketball and a tennis ball, the basketball would be like the Earth and the moon would be like the tennis ball. So that's the size difference. So let's see, how far away is the moon? The moon is 250,000 miles away, or 400,000 kilometers. That is really, 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 really far. If astronauts want to visit the moon, it takes about 3 days for a spacecraft to get to the moon from Earth. So not as long as you might think, but that's a long trip. So what is the moon made of? Well, there's a lot of silly children's stories about the moon being made out of cheese or the man on the moon. Some people think it looks like cheese. I don't know, what do you think? I think in this picture, it does kind of look like cheese. All those big old craters looks like holes in Swiss cheese, but it is in fact not. It is made out of rock, just like the Earth. And we know this because we've had astronauts land on the moon. So the Apollo 11 mission was the first moon landing in 1969. And there's a picture of Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Over time or since then, 24 people have been to the moon and 12 people have walked on the moon. All right, so what does the moon feel like? Well, asking those astronauts, they collected soil samples from the moon. And in interviews, they said that it felt kind of like a fine powder or like snow, but it was also sharp at the same time. So it's made of sharp rock and dust. You could see all those craters on the moon. Those were caused by asteroids and meteors hitting the moon and bumping into it and breaking pieces off. So it's very dusty and all those particles of dust are sharp. If you look at the far right, you can see that piece of rock from the moon is jagged and pointy, and it will probably hurt you if you touched it. And the reason that is because in space, they don't have weather like we do. On the moon, there's not weather like there is on Earth. On Earth, we have windy days, we have rainy days, we have cold days where things freeze and break rocks apart. All those factors are parts of weathering and erosion. Those are things you're going to learn about when you're a little older, but you do know that we do have a lot of different kinds of weather on Earth. Well, on the moon, we don't have that. So all those rocks that would have been smoothed out by rain or wind or ice or broken down change shape. They're just left how they were when they broke. So they're still really sharp. All right, let's keep going. So what color is the moon? So depending on the time of year, where we are located in space with the sun and our moon, the moon can appear to change color. Sometimes it can be orange or yellow or back to its silvery gray like we're used to seeing. And sometimes it can be even seen as red. So it's pretty cool. Can we see the moon in the daytime? You answered this with Miss Ramirez. And yes, sometimes we can see the moon during the day. Because the moon is always there in space following us along, some of the times you can see the moon during the day. Now, usually the best time to look at the moon and observe the moon is going to be at nighttime because the sun's not getting in our eyes. And like you learned earlier, the sun produces its own light, but the moon does not. So the moon is just reflecting light back. So that way at nighttime, we can look at the moon and it doesn't hurt our eyes. But if we were to look at the sun, it would hurt our eyes because it's a really bright light source. So we can look at the moon safely at nighttime. Now you might wonder, why does the moon sometimes look bigger? This is a picture of our skyline here in Dallas with a supermoon taken in 2018. So sometimes during certain parts of the year, the moon is actually closer to the Earth, so it appears larger. It's really the same size, but when we get closer to objects, they appear larger. So that's why sometimes it looks bigger. Then we also have different phases of the moon. So you may have noticed that sometimes the moon looks like a little crescent, but sometimes it looks like it's halfway covered, and sometimes it's bright and full. Well, that's because the moon changes appearance throughout the month, and that's called the phases of the moon. So depending on what side of the Earth the moon is in relation to the sun is how much of the moon is illuminated. So I'm going to show you this little diagram that kind of represents how my model was showing us earlier at the very beginning. We have our Earth here and we are following the sun. We are orbiting the sun. And then the moon is following us. So it is following the sun and us. So there's a lot of movement. So depending on where the moon is how much of it we can see that's lit up. So throughout the month, we can see different amounts of the moon, and it's always the same face. So at the beginning of the month, it's a new moon. Then it's called waxing. That means it's getting brighter. So more and more of the moon is visible to us. So it's a waxing moon, and it gets brighter and brighter until the moon is all lit up. And that's called a full moon. Then it is called waning because it's getting darker. So it gets darker and darker and darker until the end of the month. And then when a new month begins, we have another new moon. So the lunar cycle or the phases of the moon dictate how long our months are. So every month it starts a cycle again. So if you had gone outside every night and drawn a picture of how much of the moon you could see, you would have a calendar that looked something like this. So you would have it almost completely dark with a new moon at the beginning of the month, and then slowly waxing until it got to a full moon on the 17th. Then it will get darker as it is waning all the way until tonight when it's almost all dark. So tomorrow morning, or sorry, not tomorrow morning, tomorrow will be a new month. And then we will have a new moon again. So do you all remember what month comes next? This is January, so next comes February. So February will have a new moon, and halfway through February, around Valentine's Day, we'll see another full moon coming up. All right, that's all I have for you today. My little challenge for you is, with a grown-up's permission, to go outside and check out that new moon. All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Schramm. Very interesting. I was privileged to see some of the first moon rocks that came back from the moon. A friend of mine's mother worked at the University of Texas at Dallas, and they gave 4 or 5 rocks to several of the schools around the colleges around the nation from experimenting all with it. It was pretty interesting. But the question today is, you said it took 3 days to get to the moon with a rocket ship. The students want to know how fast was that ship going? And it actually was traveling about 17,500 miles an hour. Guys, that is pretty darn fast. Excuse me, that is extremely fast. All right. And now Mr. Dominguez is going to tell us about that great, wonderful sun and some more stars.
Hey guys, welcome to your virtual field trip, and today we are going to focus on this big yellow thing that is the center of our solar system. Our solar system consists of 8 planets, and here's our home right here. It's pretty easy to spot. It's the blue ball right here. It's the 3rd planet from this wonderful yellow star we call the sun, and this is where we live. That's our home. But we're not going to focus on the planets today. We are going to focus on this wonderful star, and we are going to talk about why it's so important to life on this planet right here, the 3rd planet from the sun. Hola amigos, bienvenidos a su paseo virtual. Hoy vamos a hablar de esta cosa amarilla que es el centro de nuestro sistema solar. El sistema solar consiste de 8 planetas. Y aquí vivimos aquí, en este 3er planeta. Pero hoy no nos vamos a enfocar en los planetas, vamos a enfocarnos en nuestra estrella, el Sol. Vamos a hablar de la importancia de este Sol para nuestro planeta Tierra y todas las cosas vivas que llaman a esta bolita azul su hogar. ¿Ok? Vamos a empezar con nuestro paseo. Let's go. Ok amigos, antes de empezar a hablar sobre la importancia del Sol a nuestro planeta Tierra y todos los organismos que viven en nuestro planeta, quiero hablar un poquito sobre el Sol. El Sol es el centro de nuestro sistema solar. El Sol tiene una edad de 4.6 billones de años, muy joven para una estrella. Nuestro Sol es la estrella más cercana a nuestro planeta Tierra. Y la Tierra gira alrededor del Sol. El Sol es muy caliente. El Sol tiene una temperatura de 10,000 grados Fahrenheit en su superficie. Alright guys, so before we get to talking about the importance of the sun to our planet and all living things, I wanted to give you guys some quick facts about the sun. The sun is of course the center of our solar system. It's the closest star to our planet Earth. We know that the Earth spins around the sun, so it has an orbit around the sun. The sun is approximately 4.6 billion years old, which may sound old, but it's actually pretty young for a star. And finally, the sun is pretty hot. At its surface, it's approximately 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright guys, so let's talk about why the sun is so important to all the living things that call Earth home. So I'm walking outside our beautiful EEC, and as I look around, I see grass, I see trees, I'm walking towards our goats and pigs, and without the sun, there's a couple of things that would happen. We wouldn't have light energy, and we know that light energy is crucial to the growth of plants. And why is that important? Well, without plants, we wouldn't have the food to feed these goats, to feed ourselves. So everything that depends on producers would die off. And next, we have the heat energy that the sun provides. So heat energy is incredibly important. I know it's been cold, but when you step out, you feel the sun's heat, and that heat keeps a lot of animals going. I have plenty of reptiles in my classroom, and without the sun, those reptiles that are ectothermic would die. So the sun provides us with heat and light energy. That's why it's so important to us. All right, guys, I'm back inside, and I wanted to show you guys something pretty awesome. So let me see if I can get my friend out. He is a Socata tortoise, a reptile friend of mine. Let's see if he'll let me get him. I just have to move a bunch of things around, and I'll tell you what those things are in a minute. So I've already explained to you why the sun is so important to our animal friends. Well, to all living organisms. Here he is. Here's my Socata tortoise. He's adorable, right? What happens when the sun isn't available to you? Or what happens when you are a reptile keeper and you have to keep your friends inside because it's too cold? It's wintertime. So that Socata tortoise over there can't be outside right now. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to have a setup that recreates the sun's both light energy and heat energy. So in this enclosure, I am faking the sun. The sun is so important to these animals that in order for me to be a responsible reptile keeper, I have to recreate the sun's power. So first, I have a heat lamp right here. So this lamp right here keeps my animal friend warm. And this other light over here recreates the light energy. So this is the heat energy from the sun, and this is UVB light, which is a type of light that the sun gives us. So in order for me to keep him responsibly, to keep him healthy, to keep him digesting his food, I need to have both of these things that recreate the sun's power. So the sun is so important that when I don't have it, I have to fake it. When it's summertime, he definitely goes outside, and I can't wait for summertime so he can be munching on some grass outside. But during the wintertime, I have to keep him in here, and I have to fake the sun's wonderful power. The heat energy and the light energy. Pretty cool stuff, right? All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this virtual field trip. To recap really quickly before I let you guys go, we took a look around our environmental center and took a look at the animals that rely on the heat energy and light energy that the sun provides us. Without that big, bright yellow star, life on our planet would not exist. All right, guys, I hope to see you guys in person soon. I will see you guys next time.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. We learned something about our sun. We learned it's a star. And also a student wants to know, can we walk on it? And we'll just reinforce what Mr. Dominguez said. No, we would not be able to walk on it because the surface temperature averages about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And guys, we think 100 degrees is pretty hot. Think about 10,000 feet, 10,000 degrees. Don't think we could. Now I'm going to share my screen. During this virtual field trip, students observe changes in the appearance of objects in the sky, such as the moon and stars, including the sun. Students also identified characteristics of seasons of the year and day and night. Mr. Ramirez told you about day and night, the seasons by Mr. Monroe. Ms. Schramm presented the moon, and the sun and the stars by Mr. Dominguez. Thank you so much, teachers. We appreciate you watching us and joining us. I hope your students enjoyed it and learned. But we would like for you to go to www.tiny.cc/pk-2 feedback and tell us how we did. Did we help you? And now you have a great rest of the day. But more importantly, guys, have a great rest of your life and stay warm for the rest of the week.